Hey everyone. This is a special meditation that works with what we call cellular breathing, where we're using a specific breath pattern that I've used over many years. That's a very slow, very methodical, very gentle uh, breath sequence that may be different than a lot of traditional breath work that's quite aggressive and quite fast, maybe through the mouth or different things. But I found this breath pattern to be one of the most effective to connect to our inner subtle body and our energy and to also connect with our direct source. And to connect to the direct source, oftentimes is done through practices like self inquiry and awareness practices and practices that don't necessarily utilize the breath. So I enjoy this practice because we use the breath as a doorway to connect to the simultaneous experience or potentially experience-less experience of both a sense of emptiness or nothingness and fullness or love. These are both synonymous, and oftentimes on the path we will experience or oscillate between them, though an authentic abiding realization in our true nature will reveal that both nothing and everything can exist and do exist simultaneously. And so, this breath pattern and this meditation, which is about 25 minutes with a nice explanation at the end, um, gives a direct experience for those that can authentically devote to this practice. So, I trust you will enjoy. And yeah, here it is. We'll just dive in and we'll explore the breath a little bit just in the beginning. We've done it before. We're using only in and out through the nose, and we're doing it in a really slow fashion. Now, in the beginning, you may naturally feel called just to breathe in and out through the nose, and you feel that going through the lungs, which we'll guide into. But we have to understand that breath is kind of the gateway or the connection to energy. So any area of the body we are kind of able to breathe and direct the breath and direct energy into. So any place we're feeling kind of discontent or energies or things that we'd like to balance more, the more we're able to consciously direct the energy of the breath, the more we're starting to gain access to the subtleties of how energy actually moves through the body that isn't just through the lungs, and the nostrils and all of this, right? So we'll explore that and see what comes up. Okay. So whenever you feel ready, we can just get in a comfortable position. And as you do so, whether you're seated or lying down, we can go ahead and close the eyes. And generally, when we close the eyes, we get kind of this more subtle awareness or connection to the inner landscape that is always here and always present. And we can just simply tune into maybe first how the physical body is feeling in this position, however you're seated or lying down. Coming into a simple place of noticing, just watching what is here, what is present. We may find ourselves observing the movements of thought and feeling sensation as well. And all of this is just a sensation, whether it's a thought, a feeling, or some sort of physical sensation. It's all just sensations. It's arising phenomena that can be observed. And in a sense, observation requires no effort because observation happens by way of all of these things arising. Any thought, feeling, or sensation that arises is instantly observed. And so it's not something necessarily that you're doing, it's more so a surrender to what is already occurring. And likewise with the breath, this phenomena also occurs where the breath naturally goes on its own. There's nothing that needs to be done. The breath is already moving naturally. And simply by way of bringing our attention there and observing the natural inhale and exhale through the breath, you may find that almost instantaneously the breath bounces a little bit. It may get a bit slower. It may start to deepen and become a bit more fluid. And you may feel called to even begin to elongate the breath consciously, where we can in and out through the nose, just slowly inhale and very gently inhale, filling up not only the lungs, but the stomach, the belly, and really the entire body, feeling the breath go expandedly and more into every crevice of the body, every cell of the body. Going about 5 to 8 seconds on the inhale and then 5 to 8 seconds on the exhale. And within every breath, we feel a certain slowness and gentleness occurring, tuning into all of the subtleties of the sensations as you breathe into every cell in the body. And although we're deepening and lengthening that breath, if someone was watching you breathing, it would be as if they wouldn't even be able to tell that you were consciously controlling the breath. So subtle and so gentle, but still feeling the power of that cultivation of energy through the entirety of your body. Now, as you deepen in this breath pattern, as we've connected to all the cells in the body, as we're breathing, we can transition into breathing through the cells. So it's as if every cell in your body is breathing on its own. Every inhale has almost infinite inhales through every cell of the body, like your whole body is breathing at the deepest level. And on every exhale, in the same light, it's releasing and letting go. And continuing to focus on this breath. We don't need to get distracted too much by that, but there may be natural visuals that may occur or simply a deeper connectivity and awareness of how the energy and the breath moves through every cell in your body. And in this case, how every cell is governing its own breath. feeling that expansion and that correct contraction. At a certain point, you may find that the energies in the body take on a life of their own. Even the breath may continue, and you may feel naturally called to let go of any control of the breath and just feeling the pulsing of this energy that goes all the way through the body, through every cell, and even around the body, almost like you feel like an aura that's vibrating around you. And whether or not we're still controlling the breath, we can deepen into the awareness that this breath travels into the core of every cell, and at the core of every cell is essentially nothing. It's a space of void, a space of complete emptiness. And in that emptiness, the energy that accesses this point is ultimately what brings a certain fullness. So there's this simultaneous experience of lightness and clarity and openness and a sense of void, with also a sense of fullness, or a fullness of love and compassion, a sense of energy, a certain vitality that pulses through. So as we connect with this cellular breathing, we're essentially connecting to this emptiness within every cell. Within every cell, there's at the core, a particle of nothing. And we're connecting to that point, which in that point is extremely vast. As we connect to that inner emptiness, it's very vast, it's infinite in every direction. We're not feeling the weight of our thoughts, emotions, or sensations, or all the things that make up our human experience. We're experiencing that vastness of emptiness, that void. But although it's empty and spacious and feels that way, there's also this fullness that may have emerged or continues to, like a small light spark, this energy of love and fullness that kind of encapsulates you in the entirety of all the layers of your body. And we can come to rest within this paradoxical state, or this awareness here. And so, as we rest within this simultaneity of this emptiness and this fullness, connecting to this pure place of love, this energy that's not personal, it is not love that's personal to a certain identity or to a good or bad thought or good or bad emotion or sensation. It is this sense of energy that goes beyond these dualities of good and bad, right or wrong, this and that. It is an energy that is always there, always present. And as we moved with this breath and as we connect to the base, the core of every cell, we can experience this directly and see this directly. And so the emptiness aspect of this recognition comes with a certain dismissal or a gently pushing away of thoughts, feelings, sensations, identities that may be irrelevant to this current moment. We're not resisting what arises, we're just simply seeing that everything that arises at the core is empty. Anything that can be observed is empty. Because at the core, everything within creation is made up of dark matter, made up of this pure nothingness, this void. And thus, whatever carries weight, like a certain emotion or a certain thought of a certain person or a certain situation, or even a certain physical sensation that's uncomfortable in the body, we can instantly move to the basis of that manifestation. We can move to that void cell at the core by simply disregarding all of the things that the mind is saying about whatever is arising, all of the varying levels of identity and story. So we're essentially hovering within this void space, this space that can simultaneously feel both empty and full at the same time. And it's as if any arising thought or feeling that may originally have been distracting or may have seemingly pulled you away from this awareness of this emptiness and this kind of void space. Instead of seeing any ability for us to move in any other direction than what's here, we see that every thought, every feeling, every sensation that arises is instantly dissolved simply by way of connecting to the core of it, which is essentially empty. So in this case, we don't need to be afraid of our thoughts, our feelings, or sensations. From this perception, nothing is distracting because at the core it's seen as nothing. At the core, there's an emptiness to it. And even if it initially doesn't seem this way, the longer we focus on anything in particular, without judgment and without needing to dive into the complexities of what's arising, we naturally sink into this emptiness at the core. We naturally perpetually return here. So for some, simply resting within this infinitely for as long as necessary can be enough. For others who may feel called to connect with the breath once again, where there's a certain movement of the breath, a natural inhale and exhale through the nose, where we can connect with that cellular breathing once again, where the breath is not just going in through the nose into the lungs like a mechanical rhythm, but rather the breath is entering into every cell of the body simultaneously and also exiting on the exhale, where it's as if there's billions or trillions or infinite amount of inhales through every cell in every direction, 360 degrees, and likewise on the exhale. At a certain point, there may be a completion with this last round of breathing, but we can continue as we feel. And whether we have the breath continuing or not, we're just rested here in the presence of self, connecting to that intention of that 360-degree awareness, where awareness is aware of everything in every direction. So we're not so identified with the two eyes of the human body and instead connected to this infinite awareness that really does not exist within any space, within any sense of direction. But in this case, in this body, we can sense that there's an awareness of everything in every direction of sensation. Everything that can be perceived is seen. And from here, there may be this intention to, if we feel called, open the eyes very gently, but still remain in a still body. So we're not moving the body too much yet. And just simply as a practice to look to continue in this place of awareness, in this place of connectivity to this inner core, while still remaining open and aware, even with the eyes open. Some of you may feel called to stay with the eyes closed, which is fine too. But just resting in this silence for a few moments here. So whenever you feel called to complete, that can occur, but some of you may feel called to continue much longer, which is also nice. The longer we bask in this energy each and every day, the longer it builds, stronger it builds. And the more there's a certain ability in real time to essentially see the truth of whatever's arising. Because in truth, nothing exists outside of source, nothing exists separate from source. And because source is both nothing and everything, it's both an infinite void and infinitely full, then whatever arises that seems other than that, meaning it's causing suffering in some form, we can instantly or more quickly, as the process deepens, see that whatever is arising at the core is empty. It's completely empty. And as we connect with that emptiness, it's not empty after all. It is actually filled with the light of source, or the light of love. Love is a very human term, because when we experience anything that resembles this love, we know that that's it. It's like looking at a loved one or a child or a puppy or something. I don't know, you feel that. So this can be felt more consistently as we see that nothing has substance outside of this love. Everything is manifested from the same love. So whatever seems other than that is just where we're ignorant to this reality. We're deluded in that moment. We're not seeing the truth. We're not seeing that the same manifestation that seems so dark or seems so evil or seems so filled with whatever is essentially at the core the same as whatever you deem to be, on the other side of the spectrum. So authentic meditation gives us the opportunity to see the truth in all moments, so that that consistent experience of self, which is interchangeable with love, or all the great qualities that we know to be true, and we know we have the capacity to feel, this can be more consistent. And at a certain point, it becomes permanent. So that's nice. And if there's any questions or comments, then feel free to say so. Um, but I like to do the eyes open thing because it gives you a little bit of access to the ability to do this all the time. Like sitting at your computer, doing your work, or having conversation, or eating, or whatever. You can experience this all the time. It's like you're constantly just like, just a funny practice that came to me right now would be to just go through your day and continue to dissolve everything into this emptiness. So it's like if you're eating a sandwich, there's no sandwich, it's empty, right? Which means it doesn't have calories, doesn't have fat. Well, this would be a perfect weight loss management tool, but it doesn't have calories, doesn't have fat, doesn't have protein, doesn't have nothing, doesn't have cells. It's not made of anything, right? There's no matter to it. It's actually empty. It's completely empty. And it's a funny game to think of in a logical sense, but it is actually a practice. This is a good practice, because if now whatever we deem to cause suffering, like somebody pissing us off, or some situation that's aggravating, or something that we're afraid of, if at the core that is empty, it has no substance of its own, meaning it's not what you think it is, then all of a sudden these things no longer have weight, right? And this is what happens when we go through healing, because we can look at the same thing that may have caused us so much pain for so long, and we can observe it now with no charge. There's nothing there. We don't feel anything, because now we've essentially come to the reality that this thing that we thought was the boogeyman, or we thought was our phobia, or we thought was our greatest fear, no longer is that. It doesn't hold that quality any longer. It doesn't hold that definition or judgment any longer. So we've dissolved it. And because that dissolution has occurred, we can still observe the same thing. It still exists in the physical realm. It's still there. The sandwich is still there, but it's empty. Right? At the core, we see the truth of it. So, and this is proven by science too now. If you go search Higgs boson particle, God particle, this was proven by science a few years ago. And it essentially says that at the core of all matter exists a particle of nothing. So everything we think has substance in the material realm, actually at the core is nothing. That's a big pill to swallow. Especially when we think our problems and our issues and our fears and all the above is so important, so real, you know. But that's for each of us. That's the individual path, I guess. So yeah. Well, this is nice.